Hi, it's just me today. James hasn't joined us, but I have an amazing guest that I'm really excited to share. So today's the 10th episode of the Diversity Minded podcast. And here I have well-being expert Samantha, who is from the Happy Body uh, company. Sorry, you can introduce yourself
No
actually.
worries.
And today we're really wanting to talk about okay, we want you to show up authentically at work, but actually, a really big part of that is all around self love. So I'll let Samantha introduce herself, but welcome, Samantha. I'm super excited.
Hi, thank you. I'm so excited, Melissa. Thank you so much for having me. So, hi everyone, I'm Samantha. You can call me Sam as well. I am a women's health nutritionist, and I'm a health coach as well. And I'm also a mental health first aider. So, I just can't wait to dive into this conversation today.
Oh, super excited. Thank you. And so I guess some of the stuff that really triggered us having this, like bringing you on, was we were talking about if- diversity mindedness, but actually the authenticity at work. And we've spoken in past episodes about psychological safety being one of the key elements, but I was really drawn to our discussion where you highlighted nutrition and self-care and self-love is actually one of the most important things when it comes to showing up as our happiest, best, most authentic selves. I don't know.
Totally.
What are your where do we start?
Yeah, I know. And you know what? I was taking notes before joining. As humans, we have a choice every single day, right? We can choose to fuel our body in one way or another. And I really think that the way we kickstart the day is so instrumental to the rest of your day. For example, if you have a good breakfast, you're happy with your breakfast, you're satisfied, and I know it can sound so simple, but it really is going to have a positive impact on your day for your brain, your energy. So now, if for breakfast I have something that very high in sugar and that doesn't really work for me, I might be like hungry, I think we say in English at 11. So already maybe I won't be super collaborative or kind with my colleagues because I'll be like, oh my God, I'm so hungry, can't concentrate. And then you eat, and maybe throughout the day your energy is gonna go up and down. So I think like eating is so powerful, right? What we
Mhm.
put in our body is so powerful, but we have to do it in a way that works for each one of us because we are all unique and incredible. Um, and yeah, and I think I mean, we can talk about that later, but yeah, I think yeah, every day is a new day.
Mhm. To start, well, I mean, it's why I do my ice baths, to be honest, in the morning to try to
Ooh.
like jumpstart myself. But what about, so I have found that fasting is the best for me, and fasting until and having, in fact, my first meal later on in the day. Do you have any perspectives on that? And it's fine if you feel that
Yeah,
it's wrong.
yeah, I mean, totally. Fasting is a big thing. And I think we're all different. So I think we have to understand that everything is for different for each individual. Um, you have two kinds of people at the end of the day. You have the kind of people like me who have to have a breakfast, but genuinely, like, oh, like I have to. It's my favorite meal of the day. It brings me so much joy. And you have people who maybe don't have breakfast and they're totally fine. Um, I know there's been quite a lot with like Fast Like a Girl, the book. Um, but at the end of the day, I'm just conscious of like a few things as women, okay? It's just as women. I mean, first of all, how are you eating and giving your body the fuel it needs throughout the day? So let's say as a woman, you might need around 80 or 100 grams of protein depending on your body weight.
Mhm.
How are you spreading that out throughout the day? Like
Right.
in a way that really works.
Okay, well, really good question because I found that my energy levels started dropping if I did have breakfast, and actually I I feel more sluggish if I have breakfast in the morning. So when I tried the intermittent fasting until about lunch, having my first meal at lunch, then that I just noticed my mind was fully, I was
Wow.
able to go, go, go all morning. And I'm a morning person anyway. I like to wake up really early. I'm plant-based though. So
Hmm.
my traditional ways of getting protein are probably not, the norm. And a couple of years ago, I went totally plant-based. Before that, I would still eat seafood and tofu, loads of vegetables, loads of green vegetables and kale and chickpeas and
Beautiful.
so I'm very conscious of the things, and I'm really lucky to have a sister who is a vegan chef, and she's
Oh,
been a
wow.
vegan for several years now. So I but and my family have just always my father was kind of obsessed with nutrition and health and whatnot. So I kind of had an advantage. But that actually is a really good I mean, so what are your okay, well actually I'll answer your question. And then because that, knowledge, I've had somebody say, well, it's a privilege to be able to be vegan because not everybody can have access to that kind of nutritional, you know, those foods can sometimes be more expensive. But anyway, I also get plant protein with fake meat. And I don't care what people say you're
Do you?
about the fake
Do
meat, but
you?
I love it. I really love the
Like you do
corn
you?
chicken.
Yeah, you know what, Melissa? Just and again, every person is different and needs to be respected. So if it works for you, I mean, it's amazing. And
Hmm.
that's all. Like, there's like the science, there's the theory, but at the end of the day, I always tell my clients the person who knows you the most is yourself. Because you have lived in your body for that many years, maybe 30, 40, 50 years. So you know better than anyone else. And you have the
Oh, hold
power.
on a second though. You think I know that Trump thinks he knows better than everyone else and he eats Big Macs
Oh,
all day. So like he thinks McDonald's is like the best meal for him. So what are your
okay.
perspectives
So
on
I mean, these are extremes, Melissa. Like some, okay, so some people, I'm more talking about tapping into your intuition, your core, your core values, what your body needs. You see what
Right.
I mean? Like,
And I'm also coming from a place of quite a lot of knowledge because
yeah.
my father was really into health and fitness, and then I've researched, and then my sister has
Yeah.
tons of information about it. So okay, yeah, and so I take that perspective. Controversial, yeah,
Come
yeah, cool. And so, what are your thoughts then on because a lot of people just have no idea about what's good for their body.
Yeah.
I've been looking into, I used to be a sugar addict, and I think that, oh, we connected on that. So I only just recently realized how bad sugar is for our brains because I have this obsession with
Hmm.
mind science now, and that white or processed starches and da 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 da.
It's
What if
confusing.
you're not educated or knowledgeable in what's good for you and what's not? And how do you bring your work into the workplace from that perspective?
Yeah. So just a thing in general, I think there is a lack of education overall, right? And I think governments have to have policies in place to teach health and nutrition to kids at school.
Good luck waiting for the government to do something
Yeah, I
productive.
know. I'm still waiting, but I really think that we need to start there. But I mean,
Mm.
it's very controversial, right? Because all I hate saying good and bad food. So let's say the highly processed food or highly palatable food. So we're talking about, I can't share brands, but like chocolatey, biscuity things and all those things. I mean, they bring money, right? So like those very sugary drinks, they bring money, and I think there's a lot there that we there's a lot we don't know, right? As
Mm.
citizens of this world, and we will never know it. So, but I really think education and keeping it simple is the key. Um, and that's why I think in terms of workplace and how to bring health in the workplace, it really needs to come from the leaders, right? The leaders need to start really caring about well-being, i.e., they need to put their employees first.
Mm.
Okay? So, not their clients, their employees. And see their employees as the most high, like valuable resource they have. Um, and it goes through like with like quite a few things when you think about it there, because there is having tampons, sanitary towels in the toilets, having more gender neutral toilets or more toilets for women, or but I like the idea of gender neutral on top of everything else to accommodate everybody. Snacks are very important as well. Like what do you
Healthy
do?
snacks.
Yeah, healthy snacks. What do you give as, because if you give a bunch of like sweets, I mean, it's great. I love sweets, but you're gonna crash. You're gonna feel good in the moment, and then your energy is gonna like, woof, gonna kind of like crash. So it's not helping. So really, like, I think we are in an era where the leaders have to take into account health, and also like have a budget for health, right? A budget to have nutritionists in the workplace, maybe once a month, once every 3 months. Can someone come and just talk about what is an ideal plate, which I love? Or can they invest and actually have sessions afterwards, even quick sessions for their employees, so they can have a one-to-one chat with that nutritionist? I'm available, by the way. Uh,
Love it. Plug in. Yes, of course. And that's really like the true essence is how can we do more of what is needed in the workplace? Something that jumped out at me was employees being the most valuable resource.
yeah.
We know that, and which is really interesting because my family live in Texas, and
Mm.
whenever I go over there, I come back feeling bloated, gross. The food is so highly processed, and they've got tons of preservatives and additives that just like make you feel, I mean, and I think that there's a correlation between those type of foods and mental health, but I don't know. I'm not an expert. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh my God, Melissa, I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm not criticizing anyone, but when I go to the US personally, it really impacts me, my gut. Like, it really impacts me. Like, I remember last time I went, I was really sick afterwards.
Mm.
So, the before, actually, I went in 2023. And so in 2024, when I went, I really had to prep my gut by taking lots of probiotics. So I just want to say there is in the US, I think everything, in my opinion, and again, I have so much respect for everybody here, there, but there's a lot of sugar,
Hmm.
there's a lot of salt, but genuinely, and I personally feel it in my mouth, in my throat. It's like, oh my God, it's very salty, or it's very sweet. It's like unnecessary. And unfortunately, all those additives have an impact on our health. Some of those additives are not even authorized to be used here in Europe, in the UK, which says a lot, right? There's a very important fact, something I love to talk about. It's is this idea of like highly processed foods. Um, in the US, an individual's diet is made up of like 57% or around 60% of highly processed food. The UK is not, I love your face, not too far behind, around 50. In
Wow.
France, I'm French, it's around 13%, like Italy.
13.
Yeah, 1-3. In
Wow.
Portugal, it's about 11%. Okay?
Wow.
So can you imagine this gap?
Well, I would love to know what Asia is because I love like Thai food
Ooh,
and
me
Asian
too.
food. That would be I'm gonna check out that stat. But wow, I cannot
Yeah.
imagine that. So let's say 50, 60%. So how does that, okay, let's talk about how then that connects with the self-love aspect. So we've
Mm,
got nutrition. We know that things aren't good for us, but we eat that anyway,
yeah.
especially if we're stressed
Oh my
from
God, yeah.
work.
Yeah,
How, because often food is a coping mechanism.
it is.
So how do you talk about nutrition being an act of self-love?
You know, It's a tough one because we all react differently when it comes to stress. Some people are not going to eat at all, right? Some people they just can't. Some people are going to be more emotional eaters. I'm like that. And I'm going to eat. But really, I think when and I'm talking about myself here as an example, when I'm in position of situation of stress, for example, I am really going to go for, I love sweet things. I used to have a very bad sugar cravings, and I'm going to say, oh, I'm going to crave cake and ice cream and that sorts of things. Um, but am I feeling better afterwards? Not really. Um, you know, again, I think we tend to sabotage ourselves quite a lot.
Wow. Well, actually, so you say you don't feel well. I So I can't blame this entirely on workplace environment because in order to cope with stress and anxiety from a young age, when I was 15, I developed an eating disorder
Mm,
and would turn to food. And my eating disorder was bulimia. So I would eat and then I would make myself ill. I would vomit. And
mhm,
basically, what I noticed was in work, especially the toxic environments that I found myself in the last, say, no, it would increase the probability and likelihood of me self-harming with food to cope with that
mm.
pressure and that stress. And, on the outside, I'm just getting on with things but that sabotaging my health. What are your thoughts on when people do that and how dangerous it is just for our our balance and ability to show up and be productive at work?
I mean, first of all, thank you so much for sharing. That's very, very courageous of you to share, and so proud of you for, being in a better place now. So thank you. I'm sure this is going to be very inspiring for so many, so many out there. When it comes to sabotaging ourselves, and sometimes there's a bit of, I mean, of course, there's a lack of self-love here, but there's also not feeling worthy of something better, right? How worthy are we to be healthy, or and I think there is that worthy part is actually so key. But if you don't fuel your body in terms of productivity, I know there's a massive trend around blood sugar balance. Like there's not a trend, but we hear about it quite a lot, and people tend to obsess about it a bit too much.
Hmm.
But in all
What does
honesty,
blood sugar
oh, sorry.
balance mean? Just in
Yeah,
case, yeah.
of
I'm
course.
I'm not
So
I'm not totally sure.
of course. So let's say you're gonna eat. There's a difference between you, Melissa, eating ice cream, and you, Melissa, having, um, even the apple and peanut butter. You know, and it's a good example. So let's say you're gonna have the ice cream, your blood sugar that inside you is gonna spike, but it's going to drop very quickly
Hmm.
as well.
Hmm.
And what's going to happen? You're going to feel great, energized, and then you might feel tired. When it comes to the apple, the peanut butter, or the brown rice, or the sourdough bread with avocado, for example, you're going to get not such a high spike, but then it's going to be quite level. So in terms of the spike, you won't really have it as high, which is going to maintain your energy and is a lot better for you. What you don't want is always eating things that are good and your blood sugar going up and down, up and down. That's basically what it is.
So really interestingly, yesterday I had a little bit of candy, and
Oh,
I have not been having sugar at all. And
oh
what
wow.
stopped me, well, I don't know. I think I was like just peckish and maybe distracting myself, and there was a bag open on that somebody had left. So what I noticed in my body was I started getting really heaty, and my heart
Mm,
started racing more. And that was when I was like, "Oh, Melissa, that's actually don't do this. Don't go down that little, that path, and so after a few I stopped. But so I think that when you aren't having it so much in your body, then you can really notice when it is having that literal
Oh
spike
yeah.
in your system.
Oh yeah, and we all react differently. And I just want to add something very important. It's the fact that your diet has to be balanced and 80/20. There is space for the candy, there is space for the ice cream, there is space for the pizza. It's all about balance. And of course, if anyone listening to this podcast has health issues, right? Like is type 2 diabetic, for example, it's another story. But as healthy individuals, there is a place and space for everything. I just want people to kind of feel things more in their body. How do you feel after eating this? How do you feel? Does it make you feel good, or does it make you feel really bad? Like I had a milkshake. uh, I like the taste of it, but I'm dairy intolerant anyway. So having it makes me feel absolutely horrible after.
You can have plant-based milk.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I do have that in my fridge. But it was very interesting how like how I feel it, and the last time with my boyfriend when we were ordering, I was like, you know what? I actually can't. I shouldn't have it, not because I don't like it, but because my body is not processing it well.
Mm, interesting. And then, but that drive to have that nice
Hmm.
treat, or I think that, and that's where, you know, companies need to come to the party and provide alternatives so that it's
Yeah.
not just full of the dairy side of things. So that's so thanks for going through that. Now, what about, because I know that you're an expert on women's
Oh my
health
God, yeah.
and hormones, and as a woman getting older, I think that that has also been why I've become a lot more conscious of
Mm,
what I put in my body, what I do with my body, with like cutting out predominantly things like alcohol. So, what are your thoughts on how that impacts work culture, and especially with this return to work from into the office?
yeah, my theory about the return into the office is that we have to contribute to the economy. When people take transport or their car or and they have lunch and breakfast and they buy, it's great for the economy. Is it good for the individual? It's debatable. I personally think that as women, it is very difficult. It can get very difficult because when you work from home, you are able to mask and hide certain things and be more comfortable. In the office, how can you hide having horrendously painful periods, for example? Like
Mm,
genuinely, are you how are you dealing with it? Are you gonna feel comfortable bringing your hot water bottle and putting on your belly? Maybe not. I've only seen that once in my corporate life, and I've worked for many years. People don't feel comfortable with that, and I think we really need to recognize the cycle of a woman. Some women have endometriosis, don't even know they have endometriosis because it takes around 7 years to get to a full diagnosis.
oh wow.
Yeah, so that is an issue. Someone can have fibroids and have continuous periods, like genuinely, like have very long bleeds that's gonna make them very tired and
Mm,
uncomfortable. So much can happen. And when it comes to perimenopause and menopause, well, I'm actually quite grateful because I feel like we've heard so much about it lately in the news. Like, I think there is so much that has been happening, which is good. However, we have to appreciate that women need support. There is so much that's happening with the loss of estrogen. Some women are going to have brain fog, um, and even the stress. Because what is menopause? A menopause is when a woman hasn't had her periods for the past 12 months. But there might be stress associated with, oh, am I going to have my period or not? Am I going to have to run to the toilet and change? And this is a reality. This is the reality that women face every single day. And we can also talk about not having enough toilets for women, right?
mm,
That always infuriates me because like men, that you never see a queue for men's toilets, but you see a queue for women's toilets all the
right.
time. And again, I'm big on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we need some gender neutral toilets. We need way more of them as well.
Mm. Gender neutral toilets kind of gross me out, and I'm a little bit OCD, so I don't like sharing with boys.
Really, you
Only
don't
because
want,
they're dirty. The
you know,
toilets are always like
really, I think
everywhere.
they're cleaner. You know what?
Oh,
I've been in actually in Brighton. Sorry, like there
oh,
is
gross.
there are like toilets that are gender neutral, and there is never a queue, and they're always clean and kind of cleaner, which is interesting.
Mm,
I don't know.
okay. Well, yeah. Sorry for anybody who are just really big on that. I can't help that I am such a clean freak, and the thought of like touching anything that n- with a bunch of boys that have been in there, I'm like, ugh, not a fan. Okay. Some of the things, I mean, you've touched on some incredibly important points. Women go having to mask their discomfort,
Yeah.
going back into the office. Now, I was so much more productive when I was working from home. In fact, I smashed my targets by mid-year when during the first year of COVID in 2020. I had already hit my targets because all of a sudden I wasn't distracted because I have likely ADHD.
Mm,
I wasn't distracted by anything going on around me in the
of
workplace. I could
course.
just focus on my work. The other thing, though, is how much time we take to get ready and you know put makeup on and kind of like our mask
Yeah.
in order to present ourselves. So there's those things too. What about how it affects the well-being from a, I mean, like returning to the office in terms of what can companies do to support people in a better way outside of men? So let's talk outside of women. Let's talk about male and females. What are they do and everything in between? What can workplaces do to make it easier for people to return to the workplace when on authenticity, being kind to yourself, having access to psychologically safe environments. I mean, all of these are so important.
You know what, Melissa? I feel like I the first thought I have was about the temperature of the office, right?
Oh, yeah, it's always freezing.
You know why? Because it's set to like 21 degrees and they don't want to change it. And it's silly, right? But it is one thing. Sometimes you have to bring a blanket. Some people bring a blanket to work. Is
Mm,
that normal? Certainly not.
mm.
Uh, if it was possible to have different zones with different temperatures, and again, it might not be possible, but how incredible would it be?
Good
When it comes,
point.
I have a colleague, I had a colleague with ADHD actually. Um, he was telling me that the lights were
Hmm.
extremely distracting. The
Hmm.
lights like were absolutely horrible for him. He was like, it just doesn't work. The lights, the sound. So if we had as well some kind of like more private booth and areas, that would be absolutely incredible.
Mm.
And genuinely, we also need to talk about religion, prayer rooms. Why don't we have more prayer rooms? Like some companies have them, but some don't. And so if you need to pray, you don't you gonna have to go to the toilets. Like it's kind of not okay. And it's the
Mm.
same with lactation room. Um,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, if we could just make work an environment where we can be ourselves, be comfortable,
Mhm.
life would be very different. And yes, I love the idea of like snacks. Some places, like very big corporations, offer lunch as well, because you have to factor in the fact that some people are going to pay a lot to get into work and may not even have maybe struggle financially because they have so much to pay. So if the company could provide a bit of lunch even once a week, I mean that would be absolutely incredible. Really putting the employees first and at the core of their business.
Well, 80% of people returning to the office surveyed by Future Form said it negatively affects their
Yeah,
well-being.
yeah.
And I'm guessing, in addition to having the environment, how can leaders show up? How can leaders show up to be more understanding and accommodating and realize that the world before COVID and post COVID is very different because now we realize we can still get things done when working from home, if not more. We can still operate working remotely, but there's this lack of trust
Yeah.
in the workplace, and then you've got the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world saying women need to show up with more masculine energy.
Oh,
What is
wow.
that? Yeah, what is that? Yeah, just crazy, crazy rhetoric. But what do you think in regards to what leaders should be doing?
I mean, I think firstly we have to acknowledge, and it might, I'm going to say something very controversial, but I think leaders can be out of touch, right? Some
That's not
leaders,
controversial. That's a fact.
yeah, that's a fact. And I was going to say, they are very high up, sometimes in their own office that has, that's very comfortable, maybe very often with a lot of money. Um, they they're out of touch. They can't really understand what we're going through. When one thing that really came to light again is financial. Your finance. Some people in the UK, in London, have to pay sometimes £70 a day to get into the office. For them, money is not a problem because they might already have so much money they don't really care. And I think, how can we bring those people to almost our level? And the other question is, are they willing to listen and understand?
Hmm.
Because we also, one thing that I have also to say, to add, is that if you have an office, you are paying your rent.
Hmm. Yeah, and some of them have invested l- tens of millions
Yeah.
in ensuring that these are offices that make their brand look great
Yeah.
and all of these things. And on that topic to work, well, my grandmother, my step grandmother from here in Southampton, when she would travel up to, she was an international school teacher,
Mm.
and she'd travel into London, and it would cost her hundreds every month.
Okay. I'm not surprised. Yeah.
And
I'm not
to
surprised.
stand on public transport all the way there and all the way back,
Yeah.
by the way, for an hour and 20 minutes.
I have a funny story. A very good friend of mine and colleague was able to buy a house during COVID because she no longer had to commute and pay for transport.
There you go. Wow. So that in itself, I mean,
Yeah,
helping your employees set up for their future and
yeah.
save, or maybe employers could be subsidizing travel if they expect people to come in.
We have that in France.
Okay.
When you take public transport, your employer will pay half, which is amazing. And it's interesting we don't have that in the UK or other places because it really helps out.
Well, for I know sales roles, there's often a car allowance
Mm,
that you get. So maybe that could be another way that people are people are considering integrating into their well-being.
yeah.
How many organizations have well-being, you know, I guess leaders in their business? Or I actually spoke to a couple of well-being leaders, a chief happiness officer, but somebody
Oh, I love that.
focused. Well, but when there was a restructure, he was the first to get fired.
Exactly.
Not fired, but let go.
No, I'm not surprised.
And it's because it's just not a priority. However,
No.
what organizations don't realize is that the statistics of happier, more productive, happier people coming into the office, they're 25% more productive than those who report poor well-being. So I would say that that's like just the minimum.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I think these days there are a few roles in terms of well-being that are out. Actually, if you look at LinkedIn, you can see wellness advisor and those sorts of things, which is amazing. But it requires what? Money. And if a company is struggling, they're going to say, well, you know what? Let's just, because at the end of the day, you also have to choose. Am I choosing to stop my wellness initiatives, or am I choosing to let go of people? Like, it's a very tough thing as well. We have to bear in mind. I think we have to understand that it's very tricky. But yeah, like anything wellness, DNI, and I know it's a very hot topic because of Trump mentioning terrible things lately. Um, yeah, those budgets are can go very quickly, which also means that at the end of the day, well-being is not necessarily anchored in the values of what makes a business successful, what makes like your employees successful.
And that's why this topic is so important
Yeah.
because coming from the revenue side, so I was all about helping organizations, well, I still am helping organizations build revenue, maximize the the productivity of people. And I am so passionate about demonstrating the connection of if your target is X, and if you really want to maximize and get the best out of your people, treating them well, ensuring that they can show up safely and authentically into the workplace, and having good leaders that care about their well being, surely I haven't yet done the study because I would that would but that would be an amazing study to be able to, like, taking an organization that was maybe losing revenue and not able to get the best out of their people, but everyone was miserable. I bet if you turned that culture around, you would see increased productivity. And that's the same for sports teams
Mhm.
where you see that they're toxic environments. Yeah, really,
Yeah.
really super interesting stuff. I can imagine just myself if I had less toxic environments in that I was working in, how much more productive, and because I'm less stressed, I'm sleeping better, all of those things would have just made me a better performer.
Because you would feel valued, right? Which would makes you feel more motivated as well to do your work. And that's the thing. And it's very interesting if you speak to recruiters and if you go through interviews, and one way of selling a role is actually to sell the environment.
Mhm.
I remember when I moved to London, someone told me about a role. Oh, it's an amazing area of London. It's beautiful. It's by the river. And I was like, yeah, I don't care. Like, I found it a bit weird. I was like, why? Why does it matter? But I get it because where your office is going to make a big difference. But another thing, yeah, is going to be about perks. What can you get? Like, can you get the free lunch, the snacks? Do you have to work from home, or can you work from home, or do you have to come into the office? It's not anymore about the role in itself. It's about how comfortable you're going to be in the workplace because you have to show up maybe 3 days a week, even 5 days a week.
Yeah. And a lot of people think that roles have to be in person. During COVID, top companies that
Yeah,
we were training to on mastering remote selling had more success during COVID than they ever had in the history of the organization,
I'm not surprised.
because they were able to get people, it's easier to book time with people when they're not taking time to travel or run from meeting to meeting. Super, really, really interesting. Okay, so what would be what's one act of self-love that that our listeners or our audience would be able to connect with? And I'm sorry that I think I might have jumped the gun there, but what are
No.
some final reflections from your side on how people can really participate in that self-love step as they look at the year ahead and having their best year?
You know, when I think about that, it always moves me because I'm trying to think about, yeah, myself. And that there's a big deal actually being able to look at yourself in the mirror when you don't look your best, when you just woke up with like puffy eyes and your hair is a mess and you don't look great, can you believe that that person can just achieve, is unstoppable and can achieve anything? Because I feel like we punish ourselves constantly, and we constantly think that we have to be a certain way in order to be worthy of success. And I think it's so powerful to think, okay, what if that version of me that just woke up, who hasn't done anything, can actually be incredible, unstoppable, and worthy? I think it's something I've been reflecting on. And I've been loving it because it said a lot. Like, and we were talking about that before this podcast. I wanted to make sure I had time to put my makeup on, to have my makeup on, right? My makeup had to be on, and I was like, but why? Like, genuinely,
Yeah.
why? Does it make a difference? Maybe for my confidence, or maybe I'm just a bit anxious about what people would think if I was not wearing makeup.
Mm.
I don't know. It's something to reflect. And I'm sorry, I know it's a very long response.
No, my
Um,
gosh, you touched my heart with that, Samantha. I think that waking up, so that's why one of my self-love acts every morning is quietening my mind and meditating for 15 minutes, but then immediately after writing 5 things that I'm grateful
mm,
for. In and what's often it's not about me and looking myself in the mirror and seeing myself just after waking up. That's something I really try to avoid. So even though I'm doing some things internally that could be quite beneficial or for my mindset, I'm going to take that challenge of trying to wake up and look at myself and feel grateful for everything that I see. That will be a very big challenge for me to
mm,
to do that. And yeah, I think that you know that self-love, they do say that if you don't love yourself, you can't love others. And I've really realized that over the last couple of years that any things that we can do to treat ourselves like the best, most brilliant friend we can think of, like somebody that we admire and feel inspired by. If we can treat ourselves like that, just imagine how much better the world would be.
oh yeah, we have so many thoughts every day, and so many are negative about us. And sometimes you can think, would I talk to my best friend like that? No. And that's why Mel Robbins came up with the, you high five yourself in the mirror in the morning, first thing. I've been doing
I
that
love that.
actually. The past few years, I've been doing that very often, and it just brings me joy because I have myself being my own cheerleader from, as soon as I wake up. I've been loving this.
I love that. Might be a better first step for me than just being like
High five
high-fiving
yourself.
myself. Yeah, like you go girl.
Yeah, literally, literally.
I love that. Well, thank you so much. If anybody has any feedback, if you'd like to get in touch, so how do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, I'm the founder of Happy Body Limited, so you can find my website www.happy-body.co.uk. You can also find me on Instagram at samantha.nutrition.
Well, thank you. I mean, I feel like we could be going on all
I
day
know.
about the importance of well-being at work, and I'm just really grateful that I had the opportunity to connect with you, and I'm sure we're gonna do lots more together.
Oh,
But
please.
thank you
Thank
so
you
much for
so
your
much.
time.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye bye.